My name is Sanjay Datta Roy, and you are watching Poetry and You.
Hello, namaste, and a very warm welcome. You are watching Abhivyakti with me, that is Shafali Dubey. In today's conversation, we have with us Mr. Sanjay Datta Roy, Professor English Department in the Allahabad University. He's a poet and also a theatre person. So I would like to really thank you for joining us here in the Abhivyakti series. How are you?
Fine, it's entirely my pleasure to be here in Poetry and You, Abhivyakti, and I am looking forward to the conversation.
Okay, sir. So, sir, since you are a professor in the English department, I would like to ask you straight away, how did you venture into the teaching profession?
It goes back to my school days when we had some very fascinating teachers. They were Jesuit fathers, and the way they communicated knowledge, wisdom through their personality, and the values that they communicated, that was a fascinating kind of an observation that I had at that early age. And the desire to be a teacher, I think, must have been born at that time.
At that time.
But then later, you see, when I went into my higher education, at that time, I felt that the proper subject for a teacher would be humanities and literature, because it is through humanities and literature that values can be communicated, the personality of the teacher becomes important, and communication became the central feature for teaching, because it is through that you can move generations and into the future. That was it.
Right. Okay. So you are a poet, and we have heard that your work have been highly recognized, and you have received so much recognition. So please tell us more about your work.
Right. My work as a poet is actually also interconnected with my work as an academician. Because it was in the 90s that I went to the US on a Fulbright fellowship. And there I was working on autobiography and poetry and the connection between the two. And there you see, autobiography works on incidents, events in one's life. It organizes those incidents and events into a narrative. Poetry actually organizes poems which have been written at certain times in our life, which are related to certain experiences and incidents in our life. Autobiography actually is about life, the lived life, and poetry is about the created life. And the two get interconnected. And that is how you see my first collection of poems was born. It was called The Absent Words, where I picked up poems that I had written at different points in my life, organized them, edited them, arranged them in a certain subtle, implicit narrative that only a reader could understand by reading them. And that I organized into a book form, which was my first book. But while I was doing it, I realized, you see, that there are several kinds of narratives that exist in life. And there are the macro narratives, you see, the epics, the myths, the legends, you see, which are the great stories like the Mahabharata, the Ramayana. And there are the micro narratives, which are our narratives, small narratives of our lives. And we can connect the two narratives, our narratives and the macro narratives. So my second book was a kind of a long poem where I connected two narratives. One was the narrative from the Mahabharata, where I reconstituted some of the characters from the Mahabharata, and it was a conversation between Janmejay and Vyas. And the other was a micro narrative where a father spoke to his son, which is a personal small narrative. These two I connected into what I called into grander space. And then you see, out of that emerged, you see, the next experiment, which was basically diary poems and storytellers' rhymes, which is this one, which came out from the US, from Bloomington. And this was, you see, storytelling is a kind of an old narrative tradition which has been there from one generation to the other. So, in the one hand, I use poetry to tell stories, and on the other hand, there are these intensely private diary poems which you write as memoir. And these two, again, I connected. Again, micro narratives and macro narratives. And finally, now I'm experimenting with folk songs and folk lyrics in Bengali, the Baul singers who have been singing, you see, trying to adapt and transcreate them into English. Because I feel, you see, Indian poetry in English has often got very alienated from its own roots. Barring a few poets who have experimented with roots, like Agha Shahid Ali has experimented with the ghazal, Arun Kolatkar, the Marathi poet, has experimented with bhakti poetry. But most of the poetry that is written in English is alienated poetry, alienated from its own roots. So I thought that maybe this kind of an adaptation and transcreation of the Bengali folk lyrics and the folk songs and the Baul songs into English would be something, which would connect me with my own roots, right? So these are the kind of things that I did in poetry, and these are my various collections which came out over the years.
So, how has been your experience in the abroad universities?
I was teaching at the University of California, Berkeley, and I was a postdoctoral fellow at Louisiana State University, Baton Rouge. There's a very major difference between the universities in the outside India and the university system in India. In the universities like Berkeley and Louisiana State University, the emphasis on research and academics and the kind of systematic encouragement that is given to this kind of an activity is much more than in Indian universities. It's very sad that Indian universities have got bogged down with caste politics, regional politics. As a result, you see, this politicization of the campus has affected academics and research in Indian universities. This is the major difference that I found between universities abroad and here.
I agree. We studied your profile and we saw that you have worked on the rich narratives traditions of India. So, what is it all about?
Right. Actually, I taught a course on narratives in India at UC Berkeley, University of California in Berkeley. I have always felt that in India, we have an extremely rich narrative tradition. For example, we have what is known as the Shrinkhala narratives, like the Jatak tales, the Panchatantra, the Kathasarit Sagar, the Brihat Katha. These are part of what is known as the Shrinkhala narratives. Shrinkhala series. They move from one generation to the other and they keep on changing like one wave merges into the other. Right? So there one story after the other. It's an ocean of stories. It's a sea of stories. Right? That is one narrative tradition. And the other is the Itihas narratives, like the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, you see, which are taking up certain historical stories, Puranic stories, which are moving from gods to humans. But my interest was that how do these narratives move into the contemporary times? Now here I have worked on contemporary theatre, because it's in theatre that the oral narrative tradition continues. Because in other forms, it's written. The oral narrative tradition, in the performative tradition, they continue in theatre. So I took up certain folk theatre elements like Girish Karnad's Hayavardhan, Nagamandala, where folk tales are taken and they are contemporized. Like you have a play like Jokumar Swami by Chandrasekhar Kambar, which takes a fertility rite and ritual story in Karnataka and makes it modern. Right? So you have so many narratives, which are connected with the folk tales and folk traditions, right? And then you have modern narratives, autobiographical narratives like Mahesh Dattani's Tara. You have Atmakatha by Mahesh L. Kunchwar. Now, these are contemporary narratives which are connected either to the autobiographical, personal elements of narrative or to the narrative traditions of folk tales, mythology, legends, right? Okay.
So you just now told us that you did theatre,
Mhm.
and I would like to ask you then: do you enjoy theatre, and is there something, some base that you do theatre on? And
Yes.
if you are given the opportunity to continue the same, would you like to continue with it?
Yes, I mean, I have been doing theatre for almost more than 2 decades now. And we have our own group called the Theatre for Peace, which is a group comprised of students, faculty members, and alumni of the university. And we have done plays under the sponsorship of the Allahabad University and the North Central Zone Cultural Center. Earlier, I began my career with doing Western plays, like plays by Samuel Beckett, plays by Anui, plays by Arthur Miller. But later I realized, and this is my answer to your question, that we have a very rich theatrical tradition in India, which is part of world theatre heritage. But we have not been able to expose that to the Western world and to the larger audience. And that is because of the language restrictions. You see, because if I am doing a Kannada play, it has a very restricted audience. If I am doing a Bengali play, it has a restricted audience. So I decided that let us do these Indian plays by very well-known Indian playwrights in English. So we did Hayavadan in English. We did Badal Sarkar's Evam Indrajit in English. We did Mahesh L. Kunchwar's Atmakatha in English. We did Mohan Rakesh's Ashad Ka Ek Din in English. And we could reach out to a larger audience through that, a more cosmopolitan audience. So that has been one of the central interests which bound me to theatre. And we have been doing it, we will be doing it, and right now we are doing it.
Okay.
So it is something that is a continuing
So-
project which will go.
So if we want to see a theatre performance or something by you, we can.
Oh, certainly. Now that I've got to know all of you, I'll certainly invite you.
Okay.
Most of our plays we have done at the NCCC only, this particular venue, right?
Okay, sir.
And
So, how do you manage to connect yourself to art and culture? Because we see that we have seen that you have been doing experiments with traditional songs.
Right.
So, do you think that art and culture is all about experiment? Is it so?
yes, because how else will things continue? You see, I mean, if you are only caught up, in something that used to happen maybe around 500 years back, and today you present it in front of a modern audience, how many people will understand it? So what happens is, you see, that you have to change it to adjust to the changing times. So what is traditional, what is in the past, has to reframe itself, to remake itself to suit the modern times. So this has been one of my major experiments. That we have been, in poetry as well as in theatre, I have taken up that which is traditional, but I have tried to contemporize it, make it modern, so that it can reach out to a contemporary and a modern audience.
So, your works have been praised by various newspapers and magazines. So, I would like to ask you, well, this is a very personal question, I must say, but then too, I would like to ask you, we often see people getting digressed and swayed when they achieve success and when they achieve fame. How do you handle fame?
This is a very difficult question to answer, you see, because fame has a double-edged kind of a thing.
It's a double-edged sword.
Absolutely. It's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you see, it can spoil you, it can spoil your entire career, and it can lead to your downfall. And on the other hand, you see, it can give you a certain inner boost, a kind of a sense of confidence in what you're doing. which will keep you away from the petty, which will always make you think, that I don't have anything to do with the petty. Because I have reached that level, so why should I be petty?
And it will, motivate you to do more.
Exactly. So these two things are there. But I think both these things can be very, very destructive. So basically, I try to follow the formula in the Bhagavad Gita that you take success and failure in an equal stride. You should not be affected either by this or that. You should be there should be a total kind of an equanimity, a balance, where you are not swayed by either success or by failure. You should be indifferent to both.
You are very much, inspired by the Bhagavad Gita.
Yes, I have been inspired mostly by our folk traditions, our epics. So Bhagavad Gita is part of the Mahabharata. So as a part of the Mahabharata, as a part of action, I'm interested in the Bhagavad Gita, not just as philosophy.
Sir, you have done so much in life, and I would like to ask you, what is it? Is there something that you have not done until now? Is there something you want to do if given an opportunity?
Yes, this is something that I have been realizing, as I'm getting older, that there is so much that I got from my ancestors, from my parents, as a child, which came to me so naturally and spontaneously that at that time I didn't know the full worth of what I was getting. Like stories that they told me, stories that my grandmother told me, stories that my mother told me, stories, songs that they taught me. I took it for granted. Today, you see, when
we usually do that.
Yes, today when they are not there anymore, all of them are gone, right? And I think back, then I feel, that it is like a treasure house that I have to tap. And right now, I'm trying to do that. And that will, I think, keep me going for the rest of my life. Right?
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
So at the end, since you are so much connected to the art and culture, I would like to, it would be good if you could give a message to our youth that how they can be connected to the art and culture.
Right. I think, this is my personal opinion, that art is connected with the liberation of the mind. With freedom of thinking, with the ability to make connections. Today, we are living in a world which is getting more and more restricted in its thinking, almost claustrophobic, where we are living inside very small rooms with walls all around us. We are unwilling to connect with the world that is outside, and that is our major problem. Art cannot survive in this. So we have to look beyond these walls, make connections, cultural connections, language connections, philosophical connections with the world. Intercultural, multicultural aspects are totally central and important for art. That is what my message is for the future younger generation, that one has to open one's mind, liberate the mind, move into greater and greater freedom, and intercultural ideas will come. And that will broaden our scope of artistic expression. Thank you.
So we had a quick chat with Mr. Sanjay Datta Roy, who told us that to stay connected to the art and culture, we need to liberate our mind, we need to look beyond our walls, which is also the motive and the aim of Abhivyakti series. So this is all for today. We'll be back again with a new video with a new artist. Till then, stay tuned at our channel Poetry and You and keep watching Abhivyakti with me, that is Shefali Dubey.